Before you ever ask a single question, understand this: the goal is not to trap someone, humiliate someone, or win some emotional battle. The goal is clarity. The goal is honesty. Relationships don't crumble when people make mistakes, they crumble when truth becomes optional. So when you ask these questions, ask them with calmness, with intention, and with emotional strength, not suspicion, not anger. Because the truth reveals itself most easily in the presence of emotional neutrality. When you ask these questions, you are not just listening to her answers, you are observing how the answer is built, how comfortably it flows, how naturally it sits on her heart. The first question you ask is simple. Can you walk me through what happened step by step? A truthful person may take a moment to recall, but their story flows in a straight line. A dishonest person, however, tries to remember the lie, not the event. So they speak in fragments, they skip details, they adjust parts as they go. They feel the pressure of maintaining a story without the foundation of reality. And with every correction, every hesitation, every mismatch between emotion and detail, the truth becomes visible without you ever needing to accuse her of anything. The second question is this: how did that make you feel at the time? You're not just asking for emotion, you're asking for emotional alignment. When someone tells the truth, their emotions connect naturally to the event they're describing. Their tone, their facial expressions, and their body language support the story. When someone lies, they struggle to attach real emotion to a fabricated event. Their words may be calm, but their eyes blink faster. Their tone may be smooth, but their body stiffens. They may try to force emotion, but forced emotion never matches the rhythm of real experience. You're not analyzing words, you're analyzing harmony between the story and the feelings behind it. The third question you ask is, if I talked to someone else who was there, would their version match yours? This is powerful because it shifts the responsibility of the truth outside the relationship. A truthful person is unbothered. They know their story stands no matter who you speak to. A dishonest person suddenly feels pressure. Their mind races. They imagine the risks, the inconsistencies, the holes. They may become defensive, irritated, or overly reassuring, anything to protect the lie. The question forces them out of their emotional comfort zone. Lies crumble when accountability enters the room. The fourth question is there anything you left out because you thought it would upset me? This question gives her a safe exit from dishonesty. It allows truth to surface without accusation. A truthful person might clarify something small but stays consistent. A lying person, however, may suddenly add new details that accidentally slipped. Those additions reveal that the original story was incomplete by intention. The human brain struggles to keep a lie clean. The more she talks, the more the concealed truth leaks through the cracks. The fifth question is, if the roles were reversed, how would you feel? This question exposes empathy. Truth has empathy built into it. Lies rarely do. When someone is honest, they can immediately put themselves in your shoes. Their perspective stays stable. But when someone lies, guilt and avoidance cloud their response. They hesitate. They detach. They may downplay your feelings or shift blame because the mind in defense mode cannot naturally produce empathetic reasoning. This question reveals not just truth, but character. And finally, the sixth question, the one that clears all fog. Is there something you're struggling to tell me? This question reaches deeper than fact. It reaches the conscience. A truthful person feels safe answering it. They speak with clarity, but a dishonest person feels caught because this question forces the heart to respond, not the brain. The heart reveals discomfort long before the tongue does. The eyes soften, the breathing changes, the body tightens. Because a lie rarely survives when someone is asked to confront their own honesty directly. When it comes to understanding female psychology and identifying honesty in a relationship, one of the most powerful tools is recognizing patterns over merely listening to words. Words are easy to manipulate. A well-spoken sentence can hide 1,000 inconsistencies, and even the most convincing speech can mask uncertainty, discomfort, or deception. This is why patterns, behavioral consistency, emotional rhythm, and habitual responses are far more revealing than the words themselves. Observing patterns means paying attention to the way someone interacts with you over time, the natural flow of their actions, and how those actions align with what they say. When words and actions match, trust builds naturally. When there is a sudden deviation from established behavior, your intuition should take note. These deviations are often the first signs that something is not entirely genuine, though they may not be proof on their own. It is essential to observe patterns across multiple contexts, not just isolated moments, because a single incident may be influenced by external factors such as stress, fatigue, or mood fluctuations. However, repeated inconsistencies form a reliable signal. Human behavior is inherently habitual. People develop consistent ways of communicating, responding to conflict, expressing emotion, and showing affection. When these habitual patterns suddenly shift, it is rarely coincidental. For instance, if someone is usually open and forthcoming about their day and suddenly becomes vague, evasive, or defensive, this may indicate an effort to conceal something. Patterns extend beyond communication to include body language, tone of voice, and even daily routines. Someone who has always been punctual and attentive may start missing meetings or forgetting small details, which can reveal shifts in priorities or mental preoccupation. By carefully observing these changes, you begin to see a bigger picture that words alone cannot provide. Words are easy to fabricate. A person can rehearse explanations, construct plausible scenarios, and express emotions convincingly while their behavior tells a different story. For example, a person may assure you of their feelings, promising honesty and openness, yet repeatedly avoid questions, contradict themselves, or display nervous gestures when discussing certain topics. These behavioral signals form patterns that reveal the underlying truth. Emotional consistency is another key aspect of patterns. Honest people usually display congruence between their emotions and actions. When someone expresses joy, sadness, or concern, their emotional expressions generally match their verbal communication and the situation at hand. In contrast, dishonesty often produces a subtle dissonance. Laughter may feel forced, excitement may appear delayed or exaggerated, and concern may seem detached. Over time, noticing these small discrepancies in emotional expression can be far more telling than any spoken reassurance. Observing patterns also involves noticing responses under pressure. Everyone experiences stress or challenging situations differently, and habitual patterns of coping and behavior emerge. A person who typically handles conflict calmly and respectfully may suddenly become defensive, evasive, or emotionally distant. These deviations often reveal discomfort with a particular situation or topic, indicating areas where honesty may be compromised. It is also important to recognize that pattern observation is not about constant suspicion or overanalysis. It is about developing emotional intelligence and awareness. By noticing patterns, you gain insight into your partner's consistent behavior, which in turn allows you to identify anomalies. These anomalies can be a red flag for dishonesty, but they also provide an opportunity for open, empathetic conversation. Healthy relationships thrive when partners are attentive to both words and actions, recognizing that trust is reinforced when patterns of behavior align with verbal communication. Patterns also extend into everyday life routines and small gestures. For example, someone who consistently checks in during the day, communicates thoughtfully, and remembers small details demonstrates reliability and attention. When these behaviors change without clear explanation, it may indicate preoccupation, distraction, or concealment. Paying attention to patterns allows you to detect subtle shifts that might otherwise go unnoticed if you rely solely on verbal communication. Another critical aspect is the observation of relational patterns. In long-term interactions, a person's habitual ways of handling intimacy, conflict resolution, and decision-making become apparent. Changes in these relational patterns can signal underlying issues or a lack of transparency. For example, someone who always shares feelings openly but suddenly withdraws emotionally may be struggling with something they are not disclosing. By noticing these changes, you gain a nuanced understanding that goes beyond surface-level conversations. Patterns also provide insight into consistency across different contexts. Observe how your partner behaves with friends, family, or colleagues compared to how they act with you. Discrepancies between these patterns may reveal areas where honesty or openness is compromised. For example, if someone presents themselves as carefree and transparent with others, but appears tense or secretive around you in similar situations, it may indicate selective honesty. Importantly, patterns are not static. They evolve with time, experiences, and circumstances. Understanding patterns requires patience, attention, and the ability to distinguish between natural evolution in behavior and signs of deception. This is why observing over time is critical. Rather than reacting to isolated incidents, patterns also help you develop empathy. By observing consistent behaviors, you begin to understand motivations, preferences, and emotional triggers. This understanding allows you to engage more effectively, ask better questions, and foster a relationship rooted in understanding rather than suspicion. One final consideration is that recognizing patterns empowers you to respond wisely. When you notice deviations, you can approach the situation thoughtfully rather than emotionally. Instead of accusing, you can ask open-ended questions, invite conversation, and provide space for honesty to surface naturally. This approach strengthens communication and trust while minimizing conflict. In summary, patterns over words are a foundational principle in female psychology and relationship dynamics. By observing habitual behaviors, emotional consistency, relational patterns, and responses under pressure, you gain insight far beyond what is spoken. Words can be rehearsed, manipulated, or tailored to what someone thinks you want to hear, but patterns are built from repeated behaviors and natural responses, making them far more reliable indicators of truth and authenticity. Understanding this principle allows you to navigate relationships with clarity, empathy, and intelligence, enabling you to detect dishonesty without confrontation and foster genuine connection built on observation, insight, and mutual respect. Emotional congruence is one of the most revealing aspects of human psychology, particularly when it comes to understanding honesty and authenticity in a relationship. It refers to the alignment between what someone says, what they feel, and how they express those feelings through their body, tone, and actions. When emotions and words are congruent, they create a natural flow that is easy to observe, understand, and trust. In contrast, when emotions and words are out of sync, it can indicate discomfort, concealment, or even deception. Emotional congruence is subtle yet powerful because it operates on multiple levels simultaneously: verbal, nonverbal, and unconscious. For instance, a woman might verbally assure you that she is fine with a situation, but her body language, crossed arms, averted eyes, or a tight jaw may communicate anxiety or unease. These subtle signals often emerge before the mind consciously formulates a lie or a protective narrative. Humans are naturally wired to express emotions before controlling them completely, which makes emotional congruence a highly reliable indicator of authenticity. It is important to note that emotional congruence is not about perfection or constant alignment. Everyone experiences stress, fatigue, or temporary discomfort, which can influence emotional expression. However, patterns over time reveal the difference between occasional emotional misalignment and persistent incongruence that may signal dishonesty. Emotional congruence also extends to vocal tone and pace. When someone speaks honestly about their feelings, their voice naturally rises and falls in accordance with their emotional state. Hesitation, monotone speech, or forced modulation can suggest that the words are disconnected from true feelings. Likewise, the speed of speech can indicate emotional alignment. Rapid speech may indicate nervousness, whereas overly slow or deliberate speech may indicate overcompensation or an attempt to construct a believable narrative. In the context of relationships, emotional congruence is particularly important because feelings are central to connection. Genuine emotions foster empathy, trust, and intimacy, whereas incongruent emotions create subtle barriers that may go unnoticed at first but erode trust over time. For example, if a partner expresses excitement about your plans together, but shows no enthusiasm through their expressions or gestures, the discrepancy is a signal worth observing. Another aspect of emotional congruence is facial micro-expressions. These are fleeting expressions that reveal true emotions before the conscious mind can mask them. They can indicate fear, sadness, frustration, or even guilt that contradicts the words being spoken. In a relational setting, noticing these micro-expressions requires patience and attention, but over time, they provide a clear insight into honesty. A key part of understanding emotional congruence is recognizing that emotions are not only about honesty, but also about self-awareness. People who are congruent emotionally are usually aware of their feelings, can articulate them clearly, and respond in ways that match their internal state. Conversely, when someone struggles with emotional congruence,